Welcome back to Podcast Recovery, everyone. We're your hosts, David O.
Allie B.
And Eric B.
Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Jardine. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, y'all.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
You threw in a y'all, so my next question, I think you're from the South?
I'm actually from New York, but I spent 10 really lovely years in Austin, Texas.
I was going to say Texas.
Okay.
The way you said the y'all. It was the Texas vibe.
All right. So, like New York City?
Yeah.
Or New York State?
I grew up on Long Island, and then I lived for 10 years in Brooklyn and Manhattan, and then started drifting west.
Wow.
Okay. All right. What's your favorite borough in New York City?
Oh, my God. I mean, I am partial to Brooklyn. I lived in Williamsburg in the early 2000s, and it was wild, and I miss it.
Nice. All right. Fun fact for everybody, you know Brooklyn was not always a part of New York City?
I did not know that.
Not until 1900. It was a separate city.
It was a whole separate city.
Yep, Brooklyn was not part of New York City. Brooklyn was Brooklyn.
Until the Brooklyn Bridge?
No, the Brooklyn Bridge was before that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, fun fact. Okay, so moving on. When were you first introduced to recovery, Jardine?
My recovery date is January 8th, 2013, but I probably started experimenting with sobriety and recovery, 10, 15 years before that.
All right. And you already answered my last question, which is how long you've been clean. So coming up on 8 years.
Yeah, and 8 is my favorite number, so I'm so excited.
Congratulations.
Ooh, 8
awesome.
is a good number.
And with all that out of the way, I'm going to annoy Eric and say pitter patter. Let's get at her.
You did not fall for that last time. The last time I tried to set you up. I set it up perfectly.
I know, I didn't have the chance though.
What? Eric even gave you the opportunity. I'm sorry.
The speaker didn't. The speaker didn't.
No, all right, whatever. No, you dropped the ball.
You totally fucked up.
Yeah,
it's fine.
you dropped the ball.
Jardine, we turn it over to you. Share your amazing story with us. Rivet us. We're at your beck and call.
Well, I feel like it's a slightly uncommon beginning to my story in that I did not drink or do drugs through high school. I was that weirdly sober American teenager. I had a really good childhood.
Any particular reason?
I had a really, it wasn't a sheltered childhood, but it was a really outdoor oriented, kind of creative oriented. I was a bookworm. I was a book fanatic as a kid. And then I went to a really strict boarding school that was kind of a big deal for my parents to send me and be able to send me. And I was going to be killed if I got kicked out. So they had they call it a no chance rule. So if you got caught, drinking or using drugs or even in the presence of it, you had to leave by the next morning.
Wow.
So it has always made me grateful because I got to the age of 18 already having had a lot of experiences in life with creativity, with friendships, with falling in love, sober. So I never could really say that it's not possible to do all that sober. If that makes sense. Whereas I feel like, so many of my friends got access to stuff earlier. And then as adults, if they got sober, then they figured out how to do it for the first time. And I have used that a lot in my life. So I was super shy, though. And the minute I did get to college, I went from 0 to 100 and, got way too drunk the first time and then proceeded to do that for the next 20 years.
Wow. What did you drink the first time? Do you remember?
I think I dabbled in I can't remember the very first might have been Southern Comfort.
Oh.
Ooh.
And
my fave.
Ew. Why?
So
Your favorite?
refined.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Janis Joplin drank it. It's like, I don't know. It was my thing. I'm sorry. Go proceed. David's now giving me the death stare like I'm some weirdo. But we're not alone.
I agree.
Oh, God. I think that it was Southern Comfort or peach schnapps or some, one of those things that they make palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then definitely dabbled in other substances early on, just kind of making mixes from the very beginning.
Ooh.
And
I'm curious now.
And you honestly, literally just mixing drinking with pot smoking, with mushrooms, with acid, with, you know what I mean? Just
that's my type of party. That's my type of party right there.
Yeah.
Been there.
Just combining it all to usually disastrous results. But I loved it. I loved the freedom. It felt like throwing a grenade at myself. Like I was so awkward socially. And it was a way of like blowing things apart. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just blowing it up every night and suffering the next day, but convincing myself it was worth it.
Yeah.
And I proceeded to do that through my early 20s. I moved to New York. I was obsessed with writing. I worked in a number of bars while I was in college and in graduate school. And sort of got married to the life of bars. Also, I thought they were really kind of where real life happened and where real people went. And I had the beginnings of the mythology about like, what is a big giant life? What is a raw life?
That sounds very like Gatsby.
Or I think my version of it was a little more punk rock. I thought you had to be dirty. I thought you had to eat pizza for breakfast. I thought you had to treat yourself badly and like destroy yourself.
You are speaking my language.
Really?
Woman after my own heart.
Yeah. So I think a lot of what my drinking and drug use was in those years was actually more about that mythology than anything else. It was really about romanticizing, not giving a fuck and not caring what I looked like and not going to sleep and making it to work the next day. And
YOLO.
All the bravado about that, And meanwhile, there was this massive kind of anxiety that I was getting to know better and better. So I would be kind of up all night in New York City doing what we were doing, and then had a lot of trouble getting to sleep, usually had a lot of trouble getting up, but then I would usually get to whatever job I was doing and have friends there that we would joke around about how hungover we were, how we wanted to die. And it was hilarious again. And then I would delete all the anxiety from the hours that I was alone in. And I think a lot of getting sober for me has been recognizing how painful those times were and how sad it was that I would do that all the time, just like sabotage. And then also recognizing how like the world that I joined and the culture I found sort of celebrated all of that and allowed me to think it was okay. And I think recovery for me has been locating people and ideas that don't really tolerate that's a decent way to treat yourself. It's just amazing how long it took me to get there, though. So in my late 20s, I finally finished writing my first novel and sold it. So I got out of all my like odd jobs that I was doing because I'd finally done what I dreamed of doing since I was a little kid, which is write a book. And the book was actually about a girl that was drinking and doing too much drugs in Brooklyn. I thought it was about somebody else. I look at it now and it was like total autobiographical story. But in writing the book, I ended up having the character stop drinking, which is not where I had meant for the book to go. But it's an interesting, for me, it's an interesting record to go back and read it and see that those were the beginnings of me thinking, this can't be the life that I was supposed to be leading, and there's something terribly wrong with it. So in my late 20s, early 30s, I started doing. That
sounds super surreal.
Sober. What's that?
That sounds super surreal.
It is. It's almost like watching a video of yourself from back in the day where you're really high or something. It's almost like forensic. Like I can go through the book and realize these were the beginnings of thoughts, and I didn't even know where I was headed, or I didn't know a single sober person, and that was on purpose.
Yeah, so it's sort of like your unconscious was sort of writing.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was very much.
Oh, that's cool.
It was kind of weird. But I would do 30 days with no support, with no program, with no allies. I would do it kind of secretively. I think I was ashamed to be doing it. And yet I would feel amazing, and I would know for sure that it was the right thing to do, to be sober, that I was meant to be sober. And then usually within 30 to 60 days, that whole mythology would lure me back. So for a whole decade, my whole 30s, I tried on and off to be sober. I went to a couple meetings. I went to a really hardcore East Village meeting in New York, and because I'm so shy, I didn't share. And even though everyone welcomed the newcomer and was really, really lovely, I still fled. Like I couldn't get out of there fast enough because the idea of, I don't know, just talking in a group was terrifying, among other things. And I moved to Texas when I was 33, thinking I could kind of start over and scale it down a little bit, find a new place, do that whole thing, the, geographical solution. And I probably just multiplied what I was doing. So I found, the same kind of activities and worked in a bar. I was still writing, but it was an uphill battle to do that. The anxiety of hangovers had exponentially grown. And I finally had a great therapist who introduced me to the idea of an intensive outpatient program. So I used the opportunity of my 40th birthday, which is going to be a milestone whether you want it to be or not, to kind of hang sobriety on. And that was my entryway into this incredible program. I think the outpatient was good for me because it was a bridge to the other side that held me together, since it was 3 hours every night. And because the outpatient format is that a counselor is going to ask you questions, I had no choice but to participate, which for a shy person was actually really good. And I went from there. I've never looked back. I definitely had a sobriety revelation at that point that I've heard people talk about, where I knew for sure that and I know no one can know for sure and it's one day at a time, but it was a different feeling than I'd ever had in the past. So it was just, I'm done. Like, I'm over it. I'm so sick of thinking about this. And everything I have now is absolutely because of sobriety. I've worked with people and on projects I never dreamed of being able to work on. I've gained momentum instead of constantly gaining a little momentum and then destroying everything. I have found a new community and also kind of reformatted some of my old friendships. So some of them had to go by the wayside, but a lot of them are still here and are better than ever. And then this year I married my best friend who's also sober.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And yeah, I wrote a book about sober hedonism with a dear friend of mine who got sober, I think 4 years ago now. And we were introduced when she was just a couple weeks in.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked a lot about how she was the same as I was, and that we would go forward into sobriety, trying it out kind of furtively and with some embarrassment and without asking for help. And she would get to the other side and be sober. And then it was the idea of living a sober life that was completely confounding. And she would run back to what she knew.
Yeah.
Which was exactly my problem. Like, I could make it over. I could do the 30 days. I could do the 60 days. And then the idea of forming a new identity was just terrifying to me. And I love the idea of having conversations with people, especially people that are thinking about sobriety or are in early sobriety, about how it can look and how it can be. I thought it was that I had to become very, as a sober person, I would have to be very tame, and I would have to go to bed early, and life would be slightly smaller, but it would be safer, and that was going to be the trade-off. And life has been so much bigger. Life has been gigantic and beautiful, and if anything, more rebellious in certain ways. And I wish I could tell my 25-year-old self that those things were possible. I had a really misformed conception of what a sober life could be.
Yeah. I think we all did.
Especially because nobody talks about it in our culture. So
yeah. You know, it's really not really a mainstream thing. Like, for how many movies there are about like excess and like drugs and alcohol, there, like, for every 10 movies about that, there's probably one about the sober recovery side.
I know it, and I feel like it's often the like really painful part of getting sober. It's not even the fantastic part.
Yeah. I
mean, there will always be heavy lifting, I think, to sobriety, but there's also so much. I mean, what is it has enabled me to do in terms of work and travel and life and experimenting in art and taking chances. And I don't know, I felt like it was almost a secret, kind of, you know?
Yeah. 100%.
With help. Yeah. So I'm very interested also in people sharing their stories in the mainstream, because I think I, as a drinker, used to sort of, I don't know, I think I was not always welcoming to sober people. I think I would make jokes about how uptight they were, self-righteous. 100%. I had, bias against it. And I love that it seems to be creeping into the mainstream a little bit more and a little bit more. And if people can just be more comfortable talking about it to people who aren't sober, that is thrilling to me too. I mean, I love what I've found in recovery communities, but I also love the idea of us blending together a little bit more too, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And that's pretty much my story. My sobriety has had a lot to do with my work. I used to totally mythologize heavy drinking writers and artists. And now I see that as a joke. Like, it's the worst thing for your work. It's like crippling for your work, really. And I love having discovered. It's been amazing to discover how many things I was wrong about.
Yeah.
Really.
100%. And like, actually, like, going along with like just like what you just said. One of my favorite quotes ever, and these are artists. It's Aerosmith. One of their like best quotes I ever heard was they started their careers as musicians dabbling in drugs, and then it turned to they were drug addicts who were dabbling in music. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
All right. And it's true because like the middle of their career got completely destroyed by drugs. I mean, like there's virtually,
Absolutely.
like late 70s, early 80s Aerosmith disappeared because of drugs. And thank you, Run DMC, for bringing them back. Because I love Aerosmith. All right. We definitely have some questions for you. I'm going to start.
We've already discussed this. Like, I mean, do you need validation? Do you need
Yes, go ahead,
verification?
David.
I don't want, like,
Go
this is
ahead,
what,
David.
no.
We talked about this before.
I don't like this.
This is
Why?
what it's decided.
It's decided. Okay.
Yeah, this is. We
This is how
voted.
we talked about it.
The tribe has spoken.
Well, I don't like it. I volunteer as tribute, though. Okay.
Yeah, we volunteered you.
Yeah, you didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Okay. Fun question first for everybody. Jardine, what is your favorite book?
Oh my God. How to even begin?
Got to choose one.
I think right now You Can't Win by Jack Black, the original Jack Black of the 1920s.
Yeah.
Okay. Eric?
It's Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman.
Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. Okay.
I love him.
Slaughterhouse-Five by
Oh,
Kurt Vonnegut. Yeah,
that is a solid book.
Yeah, it's probably
Kurt
the
Vonnegut
best.
is fantastic.
Yeah.
And my go-to is always Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. Favorite book ever.
I still gotta read that.
It's
Love.
it's spectacular. And I can't like people don't realize like he's revered as like one of the greatest writers of all time, and it's like you do realize he only wrote one book. That was it. It was just a compendium of his whole life is Leaves of Grass, and that's it. And just that fact is just mind blowing to me that he just all these short stories and poems and everything and just put into one thing. Anyway, all right. This is kind of punny, so I liked it. So how empowering was it getting the opportunity to write a new chapter in your own life?
Dun-dun-dun.
You like that?
I do like that.
And it actually
Eric
you like
did
that?
not like that.
No, Eric's a fucking dickhead. Who cares? Well, this is what you get when I go first. Now, and like it sort of occurred to me: is it a new chapter or is it a whole new book?
Look. Ooh, okay.
Ooh. A new volume, maybe?
Oh yes,
Oh.
yes, Jardine Volume 2.
I like
You know? Yeah. I mean, it's funny to use book metaphors because I feel like so much of sobriety is realizing you don't control the narrative. So it's like the
Yeah.
opposite of, it's like letting go of it, which I find in quarantine too. I know a lot of people have been talking about how sobriety has helped them. All the like disciplines of sobriety has helped in quarantine because so many of us have trained ourselves in letting go of what happens tomorrow. And that has so much to do with narrative. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is kind of a catch-22 because you're right. We're releasing control of that narrative, but like, I mean, in the very first step, like we were powerless. So we're not, as soon as we take the drugs and alcohol out of our system, we now have power of choice.
Yeah.
Well, Allie.
It's interesting dynamics. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What have you got, Allie?
I don't know. I got this vibe that you like are very enthusiastic about recovery, and I don't know. Like I feel the same way. Like I love hearing stories, and so like, what has been your greatest gift that your sobriety has given you?
I think it's funny. I now look back at who I was as a child and a teenager, and like all the dorkiness and the curiosity and the vulnerability that I was so embarrassed by at the time. And then kind of tried to destroy for years.
Mm-hmm.
I've now reclaimed, and I now see them as like great parts of my life, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm happy to be a nerd, you know, it's okay to be awkward if it leads to some kind of more sincere life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which sobriety is kind of like, recovery has really clarified all that for me. I'm like, I can be vulnerable because I'm not in such danger all the time. Like I was not safe the way I was living. So I had to be more self-protecting, and I love the freedom that I have now. I can take more chances, and I can be that kind of dorky person that I fear I was meant to be, you know?
Beautiful.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the fairly generic question that I ask to everyone. I like this question.
It is a fantastic question.
So,
the first time you fucking asked it, I was like, God damn, that's good.
Wait, I don't know the question,
Yes,
so
you do.
I'm excited.
It's the recovery questions. So, you know, one of the things that I think is really important, and you kind of discussed it in your share a little bit, where you're talking about like incorporating different parts of recovery into your own recovery. So what are some of the different forms that your recovery takes? Like what different aspects of life where, you know, and it doesn't have to be just, you know, reading a big, like the big book or going to a meeting, but, you know, maybe it's that walk you take in the morning when you wake up to like center yourself. So like what are some of the things that you do to make your recovery work?
Can we all answer this after Jardine?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Jardine.
I mean, honestly, podcasts are a huge part of it. Reading.
That's a nice plug. Thank you.
Hey, I wish Sarah Hepela's Blackout had existed when I was 25, because reading about other people's experiences has been a huge part of my recovery. Gratitude list, which I used to make fun of, as I made fun of almost everything associated with recovery. I've never written a gratitude list that didn't change my mood, that didn't change like the direction of my day. Like I'll scribble them, you know, I'll scribble them midday if things aren't going right, and write down like 6 things, and that has never not worked for me.
Yeah.
And meetings, you know, I just moved to a new town, and I'm really sad that I can't begin my life here by going to meetings, because I really feel like they can be a good way to start a new community, a new social world. And I've gone in and out of AA and in and out of having a sponsor, but there are steps and there are words and there are principles that help me, whether I'm conscious of it or not, every day.
Yeah, totally. So the question is like, what outside of recovery do we infuse into our recovery? Is that like sort of the gist of it, Eric?
Or what recovery?
What is your recovery?
What is my recovery?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Because if it's outside of your recovery, that is your recovery, then it is your recovery.
Well,
I mean, the way you just phrased that, it's like...
You know what I mean. Like,
it's two separate. There's no separation.
Yes, obviously. Okay, so what have I brought... what is part of my recovery?
What is your recovery?
What is my recovery? God, this is gonna sound
No, it's nothing. We already know how sappy you are. Is it sappy or
no? It just sounds lame.
And let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
I want to hear it.
Fucking lame.
I want to make fun of you. Come on.
lame it
Thank
up?
you.
Don't be ashamed.
It's infusing a new status quo of principles into my life and who I was compared to who I am now and who I want to become. I mean, a lot of it is reading and listening constantly. Like I go to so many different avenues of different like motivational type stuff. be it just straight motivational speakers or athletes. Like, I love sports metaphors. I love music and how you talked about how like artists, like a lot of like the alcohol and drugs really like eventually kind of like destroy their art a little bit. I mean, if you stay in the game long enough, pretty much most of them got clean or are getting clean. Like a lot of my heroes from like when I was a little kid in like the rock and roll and like art scene or direct like movie scene, a lot of actors are getting clean, and I think more need to talk about it. But yeah, and also it was exploring my like what I found as a spiritual path, and really using the 9 noble virtues every day in my life and trying to apply them. And I really liked what you said about like throwing a grenade at yourself and like trying to like blow it out and blow yourself up, because like one of my favorite quotes that I've been thriving off of probably the last like couple years is basically destroying who I am today to become who I can be tomorrow. Is just something so cool that I have that opportunity to really like tear off an old gross piece of myself just so I can have a whole new piece grow tomorrow. And have that option to be vulnerable and more amazing tomorrow. That's it. That's what I got. What do you got, Alan?
I love that.
Thank you.
All right.
'Cause I used to be really gross.
Let me think. I can see that. I can see that. I feel like dreads, the whole 9.
Thank you. I did. Have you seen that picture?
No, I haven't, but
Please don't.
I can see it.
Don't.
I have seen it.
You had dreads?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can look at David and say he's definitely had dreads before. And I don't know if they were like given dreads, like it was an option. Like I feel like it just kind of like occurred.
No, it was voluntary.
But then it like gave you the green light to just be like, you know what, fuck it.
Yeah. I was like carte blanche piece of shit after that.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
So
Totally, I don't need deodorant. Oh yeah,
Hold
no,
on. I do like what Ali just threw some major shade at you though.
100% she did.
Questioning, like being like, I don't know if the dreads were by choice.
Oh, I know. See, but the thing about throwing shade is it only hurts if you don't own it. And I completely fucking owned it, so.
I can see you getting to the point of like not bathing for weeks. That's
basically what she just said to my face. Yeah, that's fine.
what? Like
Totally.
I mean, I've been there. Anyway.
Yeah,
I
for
don't
real.
know. Like water and bathing becomes optional
Answer
in
the fucking question,
desperation.
Allie. Fuck you.
Okay, so what like is my recovery and how do I like apply it? I don't know. Like I think that
Crystals.
Well, yeah, obviously, but. Like I think it's just finally being able to be the person that I always wanted to be. And I know that sounds super cliche and like whatever, but you know, like being caught up with like image and like all these things when I was using like I could never be myself. I always had to be somebody else. And I didn't think that it was like okay to be kind to everybody and I could treat everybody the same and I could not have all the answers and I could fall apart and it would be okay. I could also get back, fall apart, but get back together better. So yeah, like just being able to like, not have to like wear a fucking mask. I mean, as I'm wearing a mask right now, but like not have to wear like the fake mask of like everything's okay and I gotta act this way to one person and that way to the other person and like self-seeking and just like totally self-centered. Like I can like treat everybody the same across the board and also like I don't know, judge. So, I mean, I did just kind of judge you pretty harshly, but that's an accurate assessment. I like to point that out. Like, I don't have to like be an asshole, right? Like, I can be a kind, good person, and
You totally you're just vomiting what you posted on Facebook earlier today.
What? Oh, my assholeness.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever.
What did it say? Like, oh, you can choose to
show the world your greatness, not your assholeness.
And my response was, I will show people both.
I wouldn't expect anything else.
Absolutely.
But like, I don't have to always be an asshole.
No,
like, I can
absolutely.
be the kind person, and I choose to be the kind person, even when like I don't want to be the kind person, and that is like my recovery. And like, I learned how to do that by like, showing up.
But see, you sprinkled in the asshole and it makes life fun.
Yeah.
We had a lot.
I'm not even going to entertain that. I know. I feel like you're just...
What did you sprinkle? I didn't take it there. For once, I didn't take it there. I might have said it, but I didn't mean it that way.
But you said, like, you sprinkle in the ass? Like, that's weird, dude.
Oh, my God.
Man. Don't judge me.
David. Too late for that, David. Yeah, like I can just like be who I am without explanation, without apology, without,
Bedazzle your asshole.
I'm not bedazzling shit. I mean, you can bedazzle yours. Talk about it later, but...
Never mind.
Please don't. That's so weird. I pity the nurse that would have to fucking deal with that shit.
I'm gonna put rhinestones on my elbows.
But yeah, like I don't know. Like I'm not, I'm not any better or any worse than anybody else. I'm just who I am. So, Eric, do you want to?
Sure. I mean, I don't
really care.
What about mine?
No, I care.
It's okay.
So, Eric, you can just look at me.
He's upset. It's okay, David. Here, let's just make sure we don't get to 4. So I'll just do a 10 right now. I apologize for hurting your feelings.
That is such a condescending apology, and it is not accepted.
Wow,
that was not genuine at all. It was not genuine.
Look, no, you are not responsible for how.
Yeah,
he's only responsible for doing it. Now
we're leaving Jardine in the wind. Hurry up and answer.
See, so
I'm looking out for Jardine.
It's okay.
She's listening to our bickering. I hope she's enjoying.
Sorry.
So
I apologize, Jardine.
So I've already talked about what my recovery is, and essentially at this point, it's more or less just trying to find balance. In my life. It's not really I don't care about like the hierarchical like achievement based recovery anymore. Like I don't care if I get a badge for, like 3 months clean. Can
we get merit badges?
Good job.
Yeah.
We should get merit badges. Why don't we have sashes? Fuck
I was
key
thinking
tags.
of like a fucking Boy Scout patch. That's what we need. We need
we do. Like when we get new, I got my marriage badge.
That was from your sponsor. Your drug. What was it?
Spoon.
Your drug awareness. No, fuck. I named the episode after it. He was like I don't know. It's Herb's episode.
Oh, the drug use merit badge.
Yeah, drug use merit badge.
Oh yeah. We all have that one.
Yeah.
So
it's crusty and frayed. It looks terrible.
We lost that one too.
But like recovery,
we sold it.
Recovery for me isn't about like any of that anymore. It's about like reading. So right now I'm reading Be Here Now, and before this I read some AA book. I can't remember.
It's Green Eggs and Ham.
No. But I try to get
fantastic book.
I try to get my recovery from many different sources.
It's about trying new things. It's good. Give it a shot.
I will not.
All right. Nah. So, on to the next question.
Okay.
So, Jardine, can you tell us a little bit about your motivation?
You're just going. Okay.
I am. I'm taking your spot.
Okay, that's fine.
Can you tell us a little bit about your motivations behind your new book, The Sober Lush, and what was your process? And I know you went over it, but like, what was your process in coming to, in writing this book and getting it? Like, what was the importance behind it to you specifically?
I mean, I think it was like kind of trying to write a letter to my 25-year-old self, and telling her like sobriety was not just I was just terrified it was gonna be all meditation, all yoga, all going to bed early. Like,
that sounds wonderful.
And I do meditate and I love yoga, but I also still want to go to. I wanted to know that not only could I still do that, but there were going to be new ways of doing it sober. Like, traveling sober has been this massive revelation to me. I mean, I used to just have bender after bender wherever I would go. So I would see the inside of whatever American-filled bar was at whatever city I was in, and not see like the country that I was traveling to. And I wanted to write something that showed how big a sober life can be, and and kind of go against all the misconceptions I had that life was going to be smaller. And I did write it with my friend Amanda Eyre Ward, who's also a novelist. So we wrote it. It's definitely not like an organized book.
Fantastic.
It's like a kind of chaos of ideas. It's written by novelists. So it's definitely not Annie Gray. Like, it's definitely not a practical how-to guide. It's more just little chapters that talk about like skinny dipping or roller skating or going to an arcade or staying up all night just because, and kind of opening the door to seeing a different kind of sobriety than what I'd been brought up thinking.
So you mentioned you don't like going to bed early and you like staying up all night. Like what is your average time that you go to sleep?
Don't judge her, you old man.
I'm just curious. I'm curious.
I do go to bed early so often. But when I was 25, I know I didn't want to. And I think I was ready to be sober younger, and instead of regretting it, it was kind of fun to like write something that maybe allowed for a life that still was adventurous and had all-nighters in it, but didn't have all the destruction,
Mm-hmm.
I do still like to stay up a little bit. I actually like being disoriented sometimes. Like I like,
yes.
I don't want life to be like even keeled all the time. And
yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So sometimes early, sometimes late, and sometimes in between.
Eric.
No.
So you did catch a resentment. So now you're going to have to process this through fucking 6 steps, David, rather than just, accepting the apology.
Listen, I'm working my own process, and I think you need to respect that.
It's okay.
Can I just say, though, that you gave him so much shit about trying to make you go first that, like, how dare you give him shit about asking the question?
Ooh.
Dude, he sits there like dead lice are falling off of him for like 30 minutes. Then he goes all goddamn Seabiscuit with the questions. That's bullshit. I call bullshit.
But he can, though.
I know he can. We all can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
Let it happen.
Do you have anything, Allie? Would you like to go?
No, you can go ahead, David. I don't want to step on your toes and also get...
This is between me and Aaron. We're good.
Now I'm a little scared.
Babe.
I'm slightly timid.
Yeah, do you see him like leaning over the table?
Oh, God.
Like, what is this?
Okay, wait. I do have a question. No,
Okay.
you didn't give me my fair.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you said that you were kind of like struggling to write while you were, I guess, caught up, binge drinking and stuff. Like, what was... were you able to write anything during that time, or was it just your first book and then this is your second book? I was just curious.
I did manage. I wrote that first book, and then I wrote a series of books with 2 friends, and it was a messy process. And then the 5th book I wrote, which was the most important to me, came out. It came from being sober. And writing didn't get easier. I think writing is horrible. I hate it.
Every writer says that.
So weird. It's embarrassing to say because obviously we choose to do it, and so it's not self-pitying, but it is amazing that I never am happy to sit down and do it. But it's 1,000 times easier to make myself sit down and gain momentum day after day as a sober person. I remember reading, Dennis Johnson, Jesus' Son. Have you guys seen that movie or read that book?
No, but we might have to now.
So good. It's really good. He was a heroin addict, and he definitely married like the substance to the writing process, and he only had published 1 book in 15 years, and his wife was finally like, you need to look at the equation. And he got clean and then wrote 7 books and won them I think it was the Pulitzer or the National Book Award, or, you know, it's amazing what can be done once we put it away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which question am I going to? Okay. So, how do I word this?
You had all of this time.
This came up. This question just came up.
Okay.
So
All right, I'll cut you some slack.
I'm winging this one.
I apologize.
I'm winging this one, babe.
Wing away.
So, like you just said that you like kind of hated the process of writing, and like the type of art I do, like I make collages, and it's like a very time consuming, like it's a very mad scientist type project for me, and like my process is always like I get kind of like into like a dark space. It's usually not a very pleasant thing for me to do. So like I really related to what you said. But like when I'm doing that, and it's really almost a type of therapy for me, because it's something that like my spirit is calling me to do. Like I have to do it. So how much do you feel like your writing is really just your spirit, like really having like that need or desire to express itself?
Completely, like 100%. Yeah. And it was ever since I was little too. Did you feel it when you were little also, or is it more something that happened? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And like, it's really like a bizarre thing. Like, because, like I have some projects that have been going on for like a couple years now. Like some I can like get in and out of the phase, get what I want. But it's like shifting different images and words into different just combinations in my mind that are all just fucking crazy. And my wife thinks I'm insane because I literally take over a whole room and just because I have like all these magazine clippings and all this shit, just mountains of it, and I just spread it out all over the floor, and I'm like crawling on my hands and knees, like with Mod Podge, and like just on a used picture frame that I got from the Goodwill. And she's just like, "Are you sure you're clean?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm not on cocaine," because it was way more chaotic when I was on cocaine. And you know what? I'm going to ask a second question. So you skimmed over this line. You said hedonism in recovery. Is it?
Yeah.
Did I hear that right? Okay. So what is hedonism in recovery? Like, explain it. I'm very curious.
I mean, I think it's interesting because I think hedonism has some really negative connotations, because I think in some of its definitions, it's very self-obsessed. So it's about seeking pleasure above all other things, seeking pleasure for oneself. So we wanted to use it more just in terms of like reintroducing the idea of just pleasure at all on the sobriety side, because I had just been brought up to think sobriety was so puritanical and like clinical and like stripped of anything luscious or extravagant. And I don't mean like materially extravagant, like money